Hey, welcome back all to my monologues. Today I'm going to be making soup. I call it smorgasbord soup because I just kind of throw a little bit of everything in it, whatever I have available in the refrigerator. I recommend this for those working moms. This was a staple when I get off of work from working in the hospital. When I come home, I'm not really into making a full 4-course meal or something that's really extravagant. And so I found that this was really easy because I can use a lot of pre-frozen or already cut up products or canned meat and different things that I can just kind of dump all together. And it's still hearty and delicious meal for my family. So the ingredients I'm going to be using will be the diced smoked sausage, and I can show you the package. So I'll be using this, which is the beef sausage, smoked sausage, Hillshire Farms. And then I just diced it up into quarters. Okay, can't be losing all the good stuff. And I also have just some hormel baking bits, about a half a cup of those. So I'll be using that as the meat, and also 1 can of canned chicken in water. I get mine at Sam's Club, but Costco sells it. Pretty much any supermarket has it, but mine is the, let's see here. This is the 12.5 ounce can. So it's just the chicken breast. I don't know if this might be showing backwards to you, but it is a chicken breast, natural chicken breast in water. So I'll be using that as a meat. So I'll have 3 actual proteins in it. And then the other ingredients, vegetable wise, will be a half of a zucchini because my girlfriend gave me this out of her garden and this thing was massive. So I cut it in half, and I'll just be using half of it, and I will be using a cookie scooper to take out the seeds and then just chopping it up. I like to leave the skin on because I like to get all the vitamins and nutrients that's found in the skin. So I cut the skin, I just cook it down a little bit before I let it simmer. And then another ingredient will be my other vegetable, which will be obviously onions, which I have here, but I will also be using a canned favorite. It's the Margaret Holmes kale greens, and all it is just kale cooked greens in water. There's no added preservatives or anything in it, so I really like using it. It doesn't have any seasoning, so I can flavor it and season it however I like. So that's the timer on my stove, letting me know that the noodles are probably cooked and ready to go. So this will be actually the kale greens that I'll be using, and I'll be using 2 cans of this because, like I said, I'm making it for my family. But obviously, if you just making it for 1 or 2, you can use 1 can or half a can, whatever suits you. Okay, so if you're like me, you probably want to have all your ingredients at least out and accessible. So other ingredients that I will be using as far as like herbs and seasoning will be just some Himalayan salt. Regular salt obviously is fine. I just like using Himalayan or Celtic salt if you have that handy, just because of the more mineral content. Also, I'll be using turmeric for its anti-inflammatory properties. And I'm a huge fan of sage. This is rub saged. So I'll be using that. And then also have some thyme and a little bit of rosemary leaves. And these are obviously all dried. Then, of course, you got to have a little bit of your garlic powder and some onion powder and also minced garlic. And like I said, for those of you that stay-at-home moms, or just this is your day off and you want to have more time to make everything, feel free to use everything fresh if you have it available. Usually I prefer it, but like I said, I'm kind of thinking about my working moms, and when you come home, you want something that's nutritious for your family, but without having you to spend a whole lot of your downtime that you have left after working in the kitchen. So I have those young ladies in mind today, or gentlemen possibly in mind today for that. Also, to use the base, I'm using chicken broth. If you're vegetarian, vegan, feel free to use vegetable broth. But I'm using the Better Than Bouillon chicken base for me. So I'll use about a couple tablespoons of that. If you have actual chicken broth already made up, feel free to do that. I'm going to use about 8 cups of broth or of water, and then I'll be adding this to make it into broth. So about 8 cups of liquid, be it broth already assembled or adding the water. So that'll be what I'll be using for that. As a thickener, the brand I use is this big, huge bag. It's Anthony Organic Arrowroot Flour, starch, same thing because it's really fine ground. I like to use that as a thickener. I tend to have a little issues with corn, so I choose, instead of cornstarch, I use arrowroot starch or tapioca starch as my thickener. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I'll also be using butternut squash. It is the fall, so these are readily available. So I picked up a bag of these, and it's just one bag, and it's a 10-ounce bag. This is a steamable, but I guess if you just have the regular one, or if you have some fresh from your own garden, feel free to add a little bit of the butternut squash to it as well. And obviously add more vegetables, less vegetables, swap out meats, whatever you like. But this is just what I had on hand today, and I was filling soup for the family, so this is what we're going to be making. And last but not least, we will be using, this is tinkyata, brown rice pasta. I am gluten-free and dairy-free, pretty much my entire family. Obviously, it's so majority of my recipes or anything I make will come from a gluten-free, dairy-free perspective. So if that's a win for you, then great. If not, then purchase whatever pasta noodles of your choice that you'll like to use. But my options will be the gluten-free variations here. So I only had a half a bag of this left over, so I just will be using a half a bag. But normally I cook a whole bag of this, which is the 16-ounce bag, so 1 pound. So normally I would cook a whole bag, but I only had a half handy. So we'll just have some crackers or something to go with it to add to the soup. Okay, so let's get started. First, we'll do the rest of the prep work. So you're just going to take this. Let me adjust the camera so maybe you can see it a little bit better what I'm doing. All right, extras out the way. All right, so what I'm going to do here is just literally just scoop this out, and I just go in and take it out. Just because this is a bigger zucchini, the seeds are obviously going to be larger in this, and I just kind of don't want these like little extra clumps in it. So I will just be taking it out. And the great thing about this, then you can just scoop it perfectly like this to get it out. So I like, okay, I'm just like being a big kid right now, but I like to be able to do that. And because I had to shift the camera down, you'll probably lose the top of my head, but we're focusing on the cooking and not necessarily me. So we'll just deal with that for right now. You'll just have to see half of me and just listen to my voice. So just finished scooping all of this out. Jeez Louise, there's a lot of seeds. Another great recipe is like using these like for boats, and you fill these up with food and then bake it into the oven. I haven't done that in years, but just doing this just brought that back to my remembrance. So that would be another little meal. Maybe I'll do a video on that at some point in time. That was actually a big success in my family too. So all of that is now scooped out. So I will let you see. It's all cleaned out. There's nothing there. So now it's just chopping it up. Now this you can actually make as small as you like. If you want kind of chunky pieces to kind of make it more like a stew type thing, then go with bigger slices. I, on the other hand, will just chop until my hand gets tired. And I am not a chef. My daughter's in school to be a chef. So usually she's down here to help me. She cuts all fancy like you're supposed to. But I just slice and dice. So I will just cut this in half. And then just working smaller pieces. So I actually might cut this one more time because, like I said, this thing is huge. So I'm looking for kind of like 1-inch pieces. So just kind of have an idea. But like I said, you cut it to your preference. Sorry for the noise on my cutting board. It's like a glass type top and it's a little bit noisy. I know for you chefs, this is painful to watch. Just bear with me. Somebody else in the comments that cuts like I could, give me a shout out so I don't feel alone in this process. Okay, so that's now all cut up. And I'm going to put this in a bowl. Okay, so the next thing I'll be cutting up is the onion. I have this great little gadget. Purchased it on Amazon, or should I say my children bought it for me. It's a great little chopper. If I can find it and I can link it, I'll put it in the description. But I think it's just like a little bit of an 8-ounce. The numbers have come off since I've used it so many times over the years. But I think it's like an 8-ounce, so it's really small. So it's perfect for like little small onions like this, and I don't have to pull out the big food processor, nor do I have to attempt to do my chopping bits that I'm not very good at. So I normally just cut this in half and then one more time, so basically in quarters, and then I put it in my chopper. And I usually do a half at a time just so it doesn't get overloaded. Okay, so that's chopped. And as you can see, it's kind of just a nice dice. The great thing I like about this, it doesn't make it watery. It just literally gives you a nice little chop and dice. So I like doing that. So I will just put this actually in another small container. And you just take the little blade out, dump it, and put it back in, and then I put in the other portion. Yeah, so if you're doing a coarse chop, obviously you don't need this, but for the mince, it really works really well. Okay, so that's the end of that. Now it's just waste not, want not. So I take off the little bits that's on the lid. Remove the blade, and then dump out the last of it. And just use a little spatula to get the rest of it out. Now, obviously, this works really great if you have like fresh garlic, and you can just dump it in here, and it chops it up like perfectly fine, like you buy it from the grocery store, which is really nice. Okay, so now I am going to turn on the heat on the stove to start heating up my pan. I'm using a Dutch oven here, but if you don't have a Dutch oven, preferably just kind of like a heavy bottom pot so it can cook everything down, allow you to fry. We'll saute first, then let things cook down without it scorching on the bottom. So something that kind of has a little heaviness to the bottom. So the heaviest bottom pot that you have available would work best for this. So while that's getting hot, I can tell you the other thing. Now, I'm not gonna say this is a secret ingredient or anything like that, but I like to use bacon fat when I make my soup. But unfortunately, I was out of bacon fat. I used it all up, and I haven't rendered down any more bacon fat or anything like that. So this is always my backup. It's called Bacon Up. And none of this stuff is sponsored. It's just what I use and I buy at the store. But I like to use this product. It works really good. And the smell isn't like really strong bacony flavor, but it breaks down like traditional bacon fat. And it is not really quick to burn, you know, like if you're using olive oil or, you know, other oils. So I do like to use this. And I just use like a tablespoon just to help saute the onions. Kind of cook down the meat just so they can get like a cooked flavor, a little browning on those. And then that's when I assemble and like dump everything together. And it seems like a lot of steps, but it really is just like let something saute and then you dump it all into the pan. Into the skillet, and then add the water into the pot, and then within 30 minutes you have it and it's all done, and you're not standing over it in the kitchen. That is my biggest thing, not having to stand over the kitchen stove when I come home at the end of the workday. So or even if I'm at home, I don't want to have to be standing over it. I like to multitask and do other things while that's simmering down. So this will be what I'll be using. So while that's getting hot, I'll add a tablespoon of that. Actually, I'm gonna use just a regular tablespoon. And then just add that into your pot. So about this much. And this is like a tablespoon, but I do a little bit more of like a heaping, I guess you could say. And then let that melt. And so if you have your own bacon grease, or even if you have some grease from your chicken that you've made, fried chicken that you may have made, feel free to use that too. All of it works. But like I said, if you just have olive oil, or I wouldn't recommend olive oil because it might scorch or burn because of the heat. But if you have some other oil that you like to use that's a little bit higher temp, stable, then go for that. My next alternative, if I didn't have this, would have been avocado oil. But like I said, you use what you have on hand. It will work. It'll get the job done, and that's what's important. Okay. So we're gonna just put this all into the skillet. Hopefully you guys can still see. I'll try to stand to the side so I'm not blocking the view. So just dump in the onions first, and then following the onions, after they cook down, I'll add in the meat and the zucchini so that can all start cooking. And then I'll show you what I'm doing from there. Now you want to let these onions cook until they're like golden brown, translucent in color almost. And if it's not perfectly minced, that's fine. I just like when I have a soup to try to have it, more bite-sized pieces. So same thing, like I said, with the zucchini, you want them like more like a bite-sized piece. So they're roughly an inch, maybe a little bit bigger, but you get the gist of it. And like I said, the canned chicken, when it comes, if you never had it before, it's pretty much kind of already minced. But once I put it in there, I'll use my spatula or spoon or whatever and kind of just break it up into little smaller chunks. Okay, so I decided while the onions are cooking down, we can put the seasoning mix together. So pretty much it's going to be like a teaspoon of everything. So 1 teaspoon of the salt. And if you're seeing the little thing in there, that's a tea bag, and I put rice in it to help kind of absorb the moisture, so I don't have to have clumpy salt. So just about a teaspoon. Okay, and then for all of my greens, I'll use this teaspoon. So turmeric likes to stick. So this is a teaspoon of the sage. A teaspoon of the thyme. Obviously, if you like more of something else, add more. Make it to your liking. This will just kind of give you a starting point, I guess you could say. And if you're salt sensitive, obviously the better bouillon will have, because it's, you know, rendered chicken, roasted chicken, so it's going to have some salt in it. So if you're salt sensitive, use your salt substitutes, or, you know, you can skip the salt if you want. And then once it's done, you can kind of taste it and see if you want to add a little bit more to it. And it looks like I'm down to the end of my rosemary. So, yep. Looks like I got one more meal in here, one more soup making in that. And I always add a little extra garlic. I know I'm gonna add minced garlic, but I always add just, like I said, this may be like more like 3/4 teaspoon of garlic. And if you have celery, I would use maybe 2 to 3 ribs of celery if you have it. Obviously wash it and then chop it up and include the leaves as well. It gives it another flavor and it tastes really good. It was just, I was out, and like I said, I'm just using what I have handy at home. So this is like everything all mixed together. And now let's check on those onions. Okay, so now they're starting to get a brown color. Light brown color, not dark. I'm gonna save the garlic for after I let the meat cook down some. So now add your meat. So I'm gonna put in the smoked sausage. Obviously it's already done. So like I said, I'm just doing this to give it a brown color. And bacon bits. And last but not least will be the chicken. And like I said, I'll just kind of smash that down inside. I'll show you in a moment. Okay, I'm going to take the camera and move you over. So as you can see, everything is just cooking down. It's simmering. And I'll just let this go for a few minutes. Like I said, everything is already pre-cooked. Obviously, if you're starting with anything raw, you would want to cook that first before mixing it with things that may be already cooked. So if you're starting with a raw chicken, recommend, you know, cubing that up first, cooking that, and then dumping it into your bigger pot. But other than that, you're just basically just kind of letting the flavors come together, and then also get some browning, you know, on some of those pieces, which makes it taste really good. So I'm just going to give this a quick stir. Just seems like the onions are, you know, fairly translucent and cooking down. And the chicken bits, like I said, you can leave them kind of chunky or break them up. That's your preference. And if you're, you know, flavor sensitive, then you don't have to do the smorgasbord technique like I have. You can just do one meat. Like obviously if you're doing just chicken, then now you have like chicken soup, and then you add the noodles, which I do have cooked over here. I've already cooked them. The great thing about the tinkyada, you boil the water, dump it in, cut off the heat, and cover it, and in 10 minutes you have al dente, which is amazing. And I love those noodles just for that reason. Other ones don't allow you really to do that without them having a funky texture. So I do like the tinkyata for that reason. So these I keep dry because rice noodles, the only downside to gluten-free rice noodles, they will get soggy because they absorb the fluid it's in. So it's not something you can mix together and let it sit overnight. So you have to keep the noodles separate if you want them to still have that, al dente texture when you eat it with your soup. So I always cook it and keep it in a separate container from the soup base. So I've been like gluten-free for probably like 6 years now. That's a whole nother story. Maybe I'll do a video about how I became gluten-free and my journey living that way. It allowed me to lose 40 pounds, which was amazing. So I'm grateful for that. And plus removing the dairy from my diet as well. I would say it attributed to that as well. So living a little bit cleaner, a little bit, I'm not going to say necessarily healthier because what's all in this pot wouldn't qualify as super healthy, but definitely a lot more cleaner. So I would say that this is, sauteed enough. So I'm just going to make a little opening in the middle, and I'm just going to dump that garlic, here in the middle, and then let that cook down just until I can, get a little browning on it, and I have that aroma. I can smell it. And then I'll add in the other seasoning. Okay, so this is roughly 2 tablespoons of garlic going here in the middle. Then just let that cook down. Let that next go. And then the next thing I'll be adding, once this cooks down, I'll throw in the zucchini bits. And if you want to buy the zucchini frozen as well, feel free to do that. Obviously, that would save time because at this step, you could just add in your broth base and your seasonings and then step away. But because I have to add in raw zucchini, I'm going to let it cook down a little bit just to kind of soften before I throw in the broth base and the greens and the other cooked ingredients. Smells delicious. I'm sure if you make this for yourself, you'll know what I'm talking about. So obviously you're going to give it a stir around just so nothing is sticking to the bottom. Don't want anything to scorch. And I have this on medium-low heat. Like I said, this is a Dutch oven, so this pot that you're using. If it cooks quickly, then adjust the temp to where it's just kind of giving you a good simmer. Don't want anything to burn. No burned flavors, just goodness flavors. Things can get brown, but not burnt. Been there, done that, and still ate it. And my husband knew better. He knew to go ahead and eat it too and not complain. However, that didn't put the filter on my kids' mouth though. Okay, so now we're just going to dump in the zucchini. Everything is kind of cooked down and I can smell the aroma from the garlic. Not much zucchini. And then the zucchini too, obviously because it's water dense, it's going to add water to this. So if you have anything that you want to cook down beforehand and you don't want it to be more of a steam effect, then definitely get that cooked before adding, a water dense vegetable like zucchini, anything like that holds water. And if you have any pieces that might be a little bit bigger, knife didn't go all the way through, which happens to me often, you just break it up. So I'll just let this go. So just maybe like 5 minutes or so, just so they can get started. So like I said, once I add in the the broth base, it's going to cook down more. And zucchini you can eat raw. So it's not a big deal if it's, you know, not cooked. It's just you're doing it for the sake of it not being crunchy. So I'm going to let this cook down for a few minutes and I'll be back. Okay, so everything has started to simmer down and cook. The zucchini is starting to get a little bit softer when I touch it with my silicone spatula. So it's at a place that I want to start. So this is the 2 tablespoons of the better bouillon chicken paste that I've already added, and now I'm just going to dump in the 8 cups of water. Now I am actually going to conserve maybe like a cup of the water from this one, just so I can make my slurry with the arrowroot starch to add as the thickener later. So now I'm going to turn the heat back up because, like I said, I had it at medium-low or low-medium. So now I'm going to turn it back up so I can come to a boil and let that cook. So this is actually a great meal to make on the weekend because obviously the next day the flavors have set in and, you know, absorbed into the zucchini, squash, or whatever vegetable that you've included. So the flavor is even better. So for my moms who are like me that work the 12 hours, 16 hours, if you have the energy, you can make this the night before, you know, when you get off, and then have it for the next day when you come home, or cook it on the weekend and have it for the days that you know you got to work those longer shifts. So whatever works best for you is what's gonna matter. And so this, I just, once everything's mixed in here, I kind of make sure that the chicken bouillon has kind of dissolved. With the lighting, it's kind of hard to tell, but it will kind of take on a slight yellowish hue. Once it looks like it's well combined, I'm going to add in the season mix that we made with the thyme, rosemary, and all that other good stuff. So here's our seasoning mix, and just dump all of that in and then give it a stir. Now the kale, because it's already pre-cooked, and the butternut squash is already fairly, you know, tender once it gets heated, I will put those in like maybe the last 10 minutes or so once this has cooked down. So I'm getting ready to put, once it's well incorporated, I will put the lid on and then just let it cook down for maybe like 20 minutes or so, until all the flavors are well combined. So I'm gonna bring this to a boil first, then I will cover it, and then let it simmer down for about 20 minutes, and then within 10 minutes I'll add in those last 2 ingredients, which is the kale, and I just put in the whole can since it's in water, and then just pour in the frozen butternut squash. So a watch pot never boils, so I'm gonna stop here and we'll come back once it's time to add in the kale and the butternut squash. Actually, I just thought about it. While that's starting to do its simmer, this would be a good time I can show you how to make that slurry for those who have never done that before. Cornstarch, arrowroot starch, tapioca starch, because they're thickeners, they're quick to clump together. So the last thing you want to do is just take them and then just like dump them into your liquid, because usually then you'll get like little rubbery balls of starch floating around in your dish. So it's recommended to do like a slurry and put it to the side. That way you can mix it really well and get out the lumps and bumps before adding it into your larger pot of soup or whatever you roux or whatever you have going. So that is the reason why I'm gonna do it separately, and I call it a slurry. All my especially cooks out there, let me know if I'm saying that correct. If I'm not saying it right, you can correct me. I won't be offended. I like learning new things too. So like I said, this is just 2 tablespoons of arrowroot starch, and I have like a cup of water. That was from the 8 cups of water. I just reserved 1 cup so I could make that slurry. So I'm actually going to use the tablespoon that I use for the chicken bouillon. That way nothing goes to waste. I can get those last little tidbits off of that. I am truly a waste not person, so I will utilize every little thing I have. I try to even use my food scraps if I have it to make broths and things of that nature. So I try not to waste food if I can help it. So you're just gonna take the 2 tablespoons, and then you're going to add the water to it. There's little bits of garlic in here because I rinsed off my garlic spoon in here so I wouldn't waste those little bits of garlic. So just add in a little at a time, and then start. If you have a whisk, that would be even better to collect all those little bits and help them break down really fast. And this is room temperature water. I've seen some places that say use warm water. I've seen some that say use cold water. I use room temp, and I've used hot water before, and I've had results doing both. So I don't know if maybe using arrowroot starch is different than with the cornstarch. You get, a different consistency, but doing it this way, I haven't run into any problems. So when you're done, it kind of looks like milk. I don't know if you can see that really well, but it does. It kind of looks like a milk when you finish mixing it all together. So when I dump in the kale and the what other ingredient? Oh, the butternut squash. I'll add this as well, and then just give it a good stir. And it's gonna change the color a little bit. It obviously will make it like a little paler yellow color, but it won't affect the taste. It will just act as a thickener to make it a little more creamier in texture. Not a whole lot. If you want it even more so, then you can add more starch to it, but I usually just kind of add just a little, just to kind of give it a little thick, like I said, a little thickness to it. So I'm gonna let that sit for a second because I hear the pot starting to boil. So I'm gonna give it a quick stir, and now I'm just gonna put the lid on top, and then turn the heat down to a low simmer. I'm gonna put it at medium, back to medium low. See where that gets me. If it's still like more of a boil, then I'll put it down completely too low. But I think medium low will do well for me. But you know your stove, you know your cooking utensils, your pots and pans, so you know what cooks fast, like I said before, so you can make those changes accordingly. So we're just going to set the slurry here to the side, and like I said, we'll combine that with the kale that I have left, and then that butternut squash. So I'll see you back in a second. Alrighty, so we're back after 20 minutes of cooking down, and it looks like it's fairly done. The zucchini seems to be softened. You can take one, try it, and see if it's soft to your liking. If you want to let it cook down a little bit more, then feel free to do so. I am now going to just add in that slurry that I had mentioned before. So I'm just going to pour that in there, swirl it around, get some of that settle to the bottom. Okay, and then just pour that in and give it a stir. And then that'll begin to thicken as it cooks a little bit more so it's not as thin. Like I said, add more if you want your soup to have a more thicker consistency. Then just gonna add in a can of kale. Like I said, the whole thing, because it's just in water, no other additives. And since now everything is fairly cooked, it shouldn't take but maybe another 10 minutes to let it come all back together. And we're going to add in the last of that butternut squash. So we're going to bring it back to a boil because we just added frozen. If you know ahead of time you're going to make it, you can take this out, the butternut squash out, and let it start on thawing ahead of time. And then as it cooks for another 10 minutes, give it a taste. If you need to add a little bit more seasoning to your preference or liking, feel free to do so. But a teaspoon of salt with the 2 tablespoons of bouillon is usually adequate, especially once if you let it cook down and simmer, it'll thicken up and some of the water will evaporate, so the flavor will concentrate. So you have to just taste it kind of right before you're ready to serve it and see if the flavor profile is to your liking. If not, add a little bit more of whatever makes you happy and give it a stir. So this I'm going to allow to cook for another 10 minutes. And then once this is all said and done, it'll be ready to serve. Okay, so this is after all the ingredients have been added and it has been allowed to simmer for about 10 minutes. The zucchini squash is fairly soft, well, completely soft to my liking. And the butternut squash is also tender. So 10 minutes after, you can feel free to eat, or you can let it cook down even more if you like it. So I'm just gonna put this in a bowl, plate it up, and I'm gonna top mine with some dairy-free, gluten-free Parmesan cheese, and with a few little crackers, and the noodles are gonna be in the bottom. So hopefully you like this recipe. Give me a thumbs up or like, or leave your comment if you actually try this and let me know what you think. Enjoy and have a wonderful day.